PCCD and OVS want to better inform and educate the field with the OVS consolidated standards. Pennsylvania has long been considered a leader when it comes to these operational standards that are designed to maintain quality services and programming delivered by skilled advocates and staff. The standards are meant to be a guide to victim service programs, VSPs, for best practices and excellent service delivery, provide minimum expectations for VSPs, and ensure uniformity of service delivery across the Commonwealth. The standards provide the minimum expectations of victim service delivery and ensure professionalism of the victim services field. PCCD and OVS has launched a series of recordings that will walk program staff through our standards. These will be short recordings up to 30 minutes in length, posted on PCCD's YouTube channel. The OVS newsletter will announce new recordings as they are available. A prior recording called Introduction to PCCD Consolidated Standards is available on PCCD's YouTube channel. PCCD recommends listening to the introductory recording if you have not already done so. In this recording, we will highlight the Emergency Shelter Standard adopted by the Victim Service Advisory Committee, VSAC, in February of 2025. Programs who have PCCD as their oversight entity and who offer emergency shelter services through Victims of Crime Act, VOCA, funding will need to have an emergency shelter policy and procedure in place. Following this training, the program staff contact assigned to your grant can help answer individual questions about this standard in relation to your project. Emergency shelter is a safe space or access to emergency safe space which may be provided in residential shelter facilities, scattered site apartments, or hotels and motels. Subject to the VSP capacity availability, suitability under intake guidelines, and available resources, emergency shelter is available on a 24-hour-a-day, 7 days a week basis for short-term stays for a victim and the victim's non-offending family members. For the purpose of this standard, emergency is defined as an unexpected, dangerous situation that calls for immediate action, an unforeseen combination of circumstances. Shelter is defined as a place for victims of crime to live temporarily when they cannot live in their previous residence. For the VSP that provides emergency shelter services, the following requirements apply. VSPs shall ensure that shelter is provided in a clean, secure, protective, and accessible environment. The shelter operated by the VSP shall be compliant with all relevant federal, state, and local laws, health and safety codes, and inspection requirements. Programs must meet the basic needs of all residents. These include food, shelter, appropriately fitting clothing, and proper and safe place to sleep. The shelter shall have written policies and procedures that explain eligibility for victims to be served by the shelter and a prioritization of their needs. This may include housing minor children and pets. In addition, travel protocols for all persons requesting emergency shelter admission shall be established. Intake procedures shall be outlined in the policy and include the orientation process to the shelter facility. For VSPs funded by PCADV, all policies are referenced in their Residential Shelter Services Guidelines. Shelter policies shall also include comprehensive services policies for residents that reflect their confidentiality rights, service agreements and records, accessibility, consent and release information agreements, residents' rights and responsibilities, including program complaint procedures. The policy shall also provide communal living guidelines including housing meetings and support groups. Shelter policies shall explain the legal responsibilities of staff and volunteers as mandatory reporters of child abuse and neglect. Individual and family plans shall reflect self-defined needs, goals, and action steps to address needed services that assist in maintaining safety. Shelter policies and procedures shall also include the following: appropriate length of stay that is flexible and also balances the specific needs of the resident with the BSP's ability to meet those needs. Staff and resident protocols for emergencies, such as locations at or near the facility. Example, fires, suicide, service recipient fatality, bomb threats, hostage situations, injury, or health-related emergencies. Unforeseen disruption of service, example, shelter infestations, environmental disasters, natural disasters, and utility disruption, etc. Plan responses for an attempted break-in or an intruder on the property and for violence or threats of violence. Daily operations shall consider the following: client travel, visitation policies, safe practices for utilizing technology, see use of technology in the provision of services standard. Health protocol shall include storage and access to resident medication, meeting the medical needs of residents, including emergency situations and ensuring the availability of emergency medical and dental care, contagious or communicable diseases. Shelter policies shall also include the following: security of residents' possessions and belongings, disposal of residents' possessions and medications left at the facility, resident access to telephone and/or internet use, privacy of residents, and prohibition of weapons on facility property. A VSP may offer alternate accommodations, example, hotel or motel, when the primary shelter facility is at capacity, the client cannot access the facility, or the need of the client dictates alternative accommodations are necessary. VSPs shall be required to inspect alternate accommodations on an annual basis to ensure they meet the environmental requirements. Example, clean, secure, protective, and accessible environment that is also in compliance with all relevant federal, state, and local laws, health and safety codes, and inspection requirements. All shelter staff shall provide trauma-informed services. VSPs shall ensure that training of shelter staff is tailored to the shelter's clientele. Example, domestic violence victims, sexual assault victims, child victims, human trafficking victims, etc. All residential shelter service staff shall receive instructions in the dynamics of communal living, including conflict resolution, facilitating group dynamics, and parent-child dynamics and interactions. Staff may be required to obtain additional threshold training or meet other requirements by the agency with financial or programmatic oversight of the VSP. Examples, PCAR, PCADV, NCA, or PCCD, including meeting the 10 hours of training required annually for direct service staff by PCCD. Staff may not be able to offer shelter services until these additional trainings or requirements are satisfied. It is important to remember that when working with victims of human trafficking, Pennsylvania's Comprehensive Human Trafficking Statute, Act 105 of 2014, explicitly notes that residents of a victim in human trafficking shelter must be voluntary, and a victim may decline to stay in the shelter if they so choose. See Pennsylvania Title 18, Consolidated Statutes, subsection 3055A alpha. In striving for excellence, VSPs are encouraged to coordinate with other VSPs and other local area service providers to develop a comprehensive range of emergency shelter services for victims of all crimes within the service area. Please email or call the program staff contact assigned to your grant with any questions. Thank you.